I should have known better. But when you're a broke 22-year-old college student with a passion for obscure retro video games, it's hard to resist the temptation of something rare. That's how I found myself sitting in front of my ancient PC, the glow of the screen reflecting off the dust-laden corners of my apartment. The game in question? A strange bootleg-looking file labeled Epitaph EXE. I found it on a shady forum, a place where enthusiasts traded weird, half-finished games from the 90s. The poster claimed the game had been pulled from shelves because of disturbing content. No screenshots, no descriptions, just a warning. Play at your own risk. That should have been my first clue. I remember the excitement when I clicked the file to start it. The screen flickered once, then went black. I almost thought my PC had crashed, but after a few moments the title screen appeared. It was basic. Just the word Epitaph in old pixelated text on a dark, static-filled background. No music, no options. Just start game. Curiosity won over caution. I hit enter. The game loaded in a top-down view, like those old RPGs. The graphics were simple but eerie. My character was a nameless figure wandering through what looked like an abandoned town. No NPCs, no dialogue. Just empty, dilapidated buildings and an unsettling wind sound that played on a loop. It felt wrong, like the game was empty but not in a way I could explain. Then the messages started. At first it was subtle. As I walked my character through the town, text would occasionally appear at the bottom of the screen. Simple things like "turn back" or "why are you here?" I thought it was just part of the game's atmosphere, a gimmick to freak out players. But the longer I played, the more specific the messages became. This isn't a game. You shouldn't have started this. Then, at the hour mark, something happened that made my blood run cold. The screen glitched just for a second, but it was enough to freeze me in place. The character on the screen. It wasn't my character anymore. For a brief moment, I saw me, my actual face, reflected in pixelated form, staring back at me from the game. I shut off the game, my heart pounding. I tried to convince myself it was a coincidence, some clever trick the developers had built into the game. But my face? No way. I hadn't entered any photos or personal info into my computer. How could it know what I looked like? I didn't touch Epitaph for a few days. But the thing is, once you've started something like that, it doesn't just go away. That night, as I lay in bed trying to sleep, I heard a faint familiar sound. The wind. The same eerie wind from the game's soundtrack. It was coming from my computer speakers even though the system was turned off. I got up, yanked the power cord, and the noise stopped. That's when I saw it. On the corner of my screen, a new text box had appeared even though the game wasn't running. "You can't quit now." I stared at the screen in disbelief. I rebooted my computer figuring it was some virus or malware, but nothing seemed out of place. No strange programs running, no unusual processes, except for the fact that Epitaph was still on my desktop. And now, its icon was glowing. By now, I knew I should have deleted it, wiped the whole drive if necessary. But something about the game called to me, like an itch in my brain that wouldn't go away. Against my better judgment, I clicked the icon and launched the game again. This time, it skipped the title screen entirely. I was back in the town, but everything had changed. The buildings were now warped, twisting into impossible angles with dark figures lurking in the windows. The wind was louder, harsher, like it was screaming at me. And the messages, they weren't just on the bottom of the screen anymore. They started flashing across the entire game, over and over, like the game itself was breaking apart. "You're not safe. It knows where you are. Turn off the game now." I tried to close the window, but nothing worked. Alt-Tab, Task Manager, Ctrl-Alt-Delete. None of it did anything. The game wouldn't let me leave. My heart raced as my character continued walking through the twisted streets of the town on its own, no longer responding to my commands. Then the screen went black. For what felt like an eternity, there was nothing but silence. I thought maybe it was over. But then the most horrifying thing happened. A new message appeared, slowly typing itself across the screen in blood-red letters. "Look behind you." I froze, unable to breathe. My room felt colder, like something had sucked all the warmth from the air. Every instinct told me not to turn around, but I couldn't help it. I shifted in my chair, eyes wide, and glanced over my shoulder. There was nothing there, just the dark, empty room. But when I turned back to the screen, the game had changed again. The character, the one that had once looked like me, was now slumped over on the ground, lifeless. And above it, in the pixelated darkness, was a new figure. A tall, shadowy silhouette with glowing red eyes. Before I could react, my screen flickered again and a final message appeared. "I'm coming for you." I shut down my computer, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. The room was dead silent. I sat there shaking, too scared to move, too scared to breathe. Every shadow in my apartment seemed deeper, every creak in the walls more sinister. And then I heard it. That same wind, faint but unmistakable, outside my window. I haven't opened the game since, but sometimes late at night I still hear that wind. And every time I do, I get the same feeling, like something's watching me, waiting for me to make the next move. I should delete it, I know I should, but part of me wonders if that would even make a difference now, because whatever Epitaph is, I don't think it's just a game anymore, and I'm not sure it ever was. It's been 6 months since I last touched Epitaph. 6 months since I heard the wind, saw those messages, and felt that presence. I thought I could move on, focus on school, on life, pretend it was just a twisted nightmare brought on by stress and sleep deprivation. But Epitaph isn't done with me. It all started again last night. I was sitting in the library cramming for finals when my phone buzzed. It was a notification, an email from an unknown address. The subject line simply said, "I've found you." My stomach dropped. I knew it was stupid, but I couldn't resist. I opened the email. It was blank, except for an attachment, epitaph.x. My heart skipped a beat. I deleted it immediately, but a creeping dread settled over me. Was this some kind of joke? Someone from the forum trying to mess with me? Maybe a friend who knew about what happened. But then it got worse. A second email arrived minutes later from the same sender. This time, the subject line read, "It's in your world now," and beneath that, a single line of text, "Play, or it plays with you." I didn't want to go home after that. The thought of being alone in my apartment made my skin crawl. But I had no choice. I returned around midnight, cautiously stepping through the door. The place was just as I left it, but something felt off, like the air was heavier, pressing down on me. I powered up my laptop, not because I wanted to play, but to check if it was still safe. I scrolled through my files. Epitaph wasn't there, at least not that I could see. A wave of relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. As I started to work on my assignment, my laptop screen glitched, just for a moment, and then something new appeared in the corner. A small, barely noticeable icon. I clicked it before I realized what I was doing and immediately regretted it. Epitaph launched itself without warning. No intro, no loading screen. Just the dark, pixelated town waiting for me. Except this time, it wasn't empty. The moment the game loaded, a figure appeared, standing in the center of the town square. It was the same shadowy silhouette I had seen before, the one with the glowing red eyes. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just a character on the screen. It was me. I don't know how to explain it, but the figure, it moved like me. It had my exact build, the same posture, the same jerky way I hesitated with every step. It was as if the game was mimicking me, mocking me. A message flashed across the screen. "You can't escape." I tried to close the game. Nothing worked. I unplugged my laptop, pulled the battery, did everything I could to kill the power, but the game stayed on, burning itself into the screen, into my mind. And then it started showing things it shouldn't know. I watched in horror as the figure on the screen walked through the town, and the game world morphed. Buildings twisted and melted, pixel by pixel, until they were no longer just random structures. They looked familiar. My dorm building, the library, my favorite cafe, places I walked by every day. It was showing me my world in its sick, corrupted form. The figure stopped in front of a building I knew all too well, my apartment. Another message appeared. "Let me in." I froze. This wasn't a game anymore. It was real. Whatever this thing was, it had crossed over, reaching into my world, my life. I felt its presence behind me, lurking in the shadows of my room, waiting for me to acknowledge it. The screen flickered, and a new figure appeared, standing behind the one that looked like me. A tall, dark silhouette with those same glowing red eyes. "I'm here." I ran out of my apartment that night. I didn't pack anything. I just grabbed my phone and keys and bolted, not daring to look back. I crashed at a friend's place, told them I had a family emergency, and stayed up all night trying to figure out what the hell was going on. It wasn't long before I realized the truth. Epitaph had infected more than just my computer. It had gotten into everything. My phone glitched constantly, showing those same messages. My smartwatch buzzed at random times, only to display cryptic phrases like, "You can't hide," or "He sees you." I couldn't escape it. The next day, I called an expert, an old tech-savvy guy I'd met in the forum where I first found the game. He was the one who had warned me to stay away back when I first mentioned downloading Epitaph. I should have listened to him then. When I told him what had happened, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "You're in deep," he finally said. "Epitaph isn't a normal game. It's something else. Something that shouldn't exist." "What do I do?" I asked, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. "There's only one way to stop it," he said, his voice low and serious. "You have to finish the game." I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to go back into that cursed game, but I didn't have a choice. It was either that or let it destroy my life, piece by piece. So that night, with trembling hands, I opened my laptop again. Epitaph launched without me even touching it. The game was waiting for me. The town darker than before. The figure that looked like me standing at the edge of the screen, staring. A new objective appeared at the bottom of the screen. Find the door. I guided the figure through the corrupted version of my world, through streets I knew all too well. Each step brought me closer to something, a feeling, a presence that was pulling me in. The longer I played, the more distorted everything became. Buildings crumbled, roads twisted, and the sky turned a deep, sickening red. Finally, after what felt like hours, I found it. A door, hidden in the shadows, covered in chains. As my character approached it, the screen began to shake violently, the game struggling to hold itself together. Then, the last message appeared. "End it, or it ends you." I clicked the door. The screen exploded in a mess of static and glitching graphics, the sound of that familiar wind howling through my speakers. My heart raced, waiting for the inevitable jump scare, the thing that would finally end it all. But instead, the screen went black, total silence. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then, one final message appeared. "You're free. For now." It's been 2 days since I finished the game. The wind is gone, the glitches have stopped, and for the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe again. But I know it's not over. Epitaph may be dormant, but it's still out there, waiting. And next time, I'm not sure I'll be so lucky. Because you can't truly escape something like this. It's in the code now. It's in me. And one day it'll come back. I just hope I'm ready.